Hello, welcome to today's vlog, which feeds on from the recent Facebook poll that I put together on the Tudor Prince Facebook page, which looked at Mary Tudor, the daughter of Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon and half-sister of Elizabeth and Edward. And that question specifically was: Mary Tudor, often referred to as Bloody Mary, has a shaky reputation among many, especially when compared to her half-sister Elizabeth, but is her often poor reputation justified? Got a great response to this poll, over 300 votes and some really great comments for and against. What I actually did before I put the poll live was write down and put in an envelope what the results I thought might be like, and we'll see from opening that up that I thought that the results would be something a bit like that, maybe 20% saying yes, her poor reputation is justified, 80% saying no, it wasn't justified. The actual results were 57% saying yes and 43% saying no. So clearly I got that one a little bit wrong. Still fairly evenly matched, but clearly in favour of yes, it's justified. So what I'm going to do now is just really briefly take you through the reasons why yes, it might be justified, her poor reputation, and why you could argue that her poor reputation isn't justified. And I'll give a few of my personal thoughts into the matter as well. So was her reputation justified? Well, there's certainly reasons to suggest that it was. Firstly, Mary lost Calais in January 1558, which was the final possession of England in France. That will have certainly counted against her. There was also the marriage to Philip of Spain. This was a time when England was pretty xenophobic, and the idea of foreign influence infiltrating England will have been something that will have, to an extent, tarnished her reputation, but I don't think that really holds any weight in terms of her reputation in the modern day. Clearly, the main element of her current reputation is what was alluded to in the question, the Bloody Mary tag, and you can't get away from the fact that Mary did have, the numbers are debated, but I think there's sort of a fairly general understanding that she had approximately 300 Protestants burnt at the stake. And when you do something like that, history isn't going to judge you particularly kindly. She persecuted the Protestants, the 300 Protestants or so, and killed them, and for that you could argue outright that she deserves the often poor reputation that she receives. However, and this is where some of my personal views come in, I think one of the key things you have to look at here is adding a degree of context. The caveat here is clearly there's no justification of having people burnt for their religious beliefs, but you have to remember the era and the age that Mary was operating in. This was an age where executions for heresy were fairly commonplace. Clearly that was wrong, but that's what was happening at the time. She was also reigning at a point in history of great upheaval between Protestants and Catholics. She attempted to reverse the Reformation that her father Henry VIII had put in place, and I think that needs to be factored in. Something else that needs to be factored in, I think, which is something that I look at quite a lot when I'm thinking about this subject, is the fact that if you look back especially to Henry VIII, you could argue quite strongly that the decisions that he made, the people he executed, the religious reforms that he passed were essentially self-serving. They were to advance his cause, advance his ideas, whereas Mary, rightly or wrongly, I think firmly believed in what she was doing. She believed that it was the will of God, and again, that may have been wrong, but it's worth noting when we look at her actions and her reasons behind those actions. I think also you have to look at the fact that she lived from 1516 to 1558. She died at the age of 42. And what we're essentially doing here is judging her on her final 5 years, the years that she was on the throne. I think if her coup against Lady Jane Grey hadn't been successful, you'd be looking very sympathetically at Mary in terms of the upheaval she had in her life. And it's really those 5 years that she was queen that we judge her on, and that's fine. But what we perhaps have to do is look back at the preceding years and look at her life, look at the fact that she had to go through the pain of the separation of her parents, the mental and physical ramifications that had on her, the hatred towards her of her stepmother, Anne Boleyn, the estrangement from her mother, Catherine of Aragon. She wasn't even allowed to see her mother in her mother's dying days and years. She was declared a bastard. She was threatened with execution. She was disowned by her father, both while he was with Anne Boleyn and for a time afterwards. And I think what underpins all this is religion, and I think it created a really steadfast, robust belief in her Catholic roots, and that's something that has to be taken on board when we look at her life and look at the decisions she made. And in my eyes, when you weigh all that up, I think it adds to the point that, yes, you have to caveat it against the fact that she made a lot of bad decisions and put a lot of people unjustly to death. But actually, if you weigh all that up, I think there is an argument to suggest that her overall reputation isn't particularly justified and potentially does need rehabilitating. So yes, I was one of the 43% that argued against her poor reputation. But again, thanks so much for everybody who got involved. Fantastic to see such engagement, and I'll see you soon for the results of the next poll.